Welcome to another episode of the How to Fight with a Longsword series, or in other words, the Lichtenauer Tradition Longsword Fencing Basic Course. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the Schilhau, which is our second Versetzencut and Meisterhau. In my opinion, the Schilhau is the second extremely useful cut in the Lichtenauer system. It is completely possible to build effective fencing around Schilhau and Zwerghau. Now, before we start with the actual subject of this video, please do note that the incorrect examples are exaggerated on purpose so that the issues are easier to see. All the techniques based on the historical sources are shown according to my current interpretation. As such, they are subject to change if I ever come up with or run into a better interpretation. There are two versions of the Schilhau. Let's start with the one which works against fluke and thrusts. I call this the low Schilhau. The name is in no way historical or commonly used in modern HEMA. Stand in vom Tag and have the sword in a thumb grip. In this case, the thumb grip is such that you have the short edge pointing forwards. It looks a lot like a normal grip, but when you watch closely, you can see the thumb on the dominant side of the sword. From there, cut like you would cut a dominant side Oberhau. You want to have a rather steep cutting angle. Because of the thumb grip, it should be easy to leave the point in line. In the end position, you want to think of your dominant hand as a cup on which the sword rests. The hand needs to be slightly turned so that the base of your thumb is supporting the grip from the top. Your non-dominant hand is on top of the grip, thus keeping the pommel down and the point up, as the grip can't come up through your hand and forearm. As always, remember to have your wrists straight. Once again, it is important that you don't lead with your hands. With the low Schilhau, it is important that you don't let the point sink. If your dominant hand is basically a cup, your non-dominant arm does the hard work. Just keep the arm straight and directly above the grip. This will prevent the pommel from coming up and the point sinking. Don't cut to the center. You must have your hand slightly to your non-dominant side. This closes the direct thrusting line from fluke, just like thrusting in opposition does. But also don't bring your hands too much to the side. This makes it likely that you accidentally leave your opponent's sword between the center line and your sword. The Schilhau should be a cut at a relatively steep angle. Don't make the cut too horizontal. You also want to extend your hands forwards. Don't bring them close to your hip. As an exercise, cut a low Schilhau. Don't take a passing step during the cut. Make sure that your point is in line. Then take a passing step. Return to vom Tag and repeat. Next, a paired drill. The coach stands in fluke. It doesn't matter on which side. The trainee stands in vom Tag at a passing step distance. The trainee cuts a Schilhau without a step. After the cut, they deliver a thrust to the coach's head with a passing step. The Schilhau must be cut so that the point is directed at the coach's face. As with winding, you don't want to change the coach's blade if their point is offline. Simply cut the Schilhau as if the coach was threatening you with their point. Just like with the thrusting drills, after the trainee has landed their thrust to the coach's face, the coach can make a direct thrust. This is to make sure that the trainee has managed to close the direct thrusting line. The coach is not allowed to thrust using Auswinden. Then the same drill but with free movement. I mentioned that the low Schilhau works against the fluke. In reality, it works against all low thrusting guards. If your opponent has their hands on the chest height and the point directed at you, the low Schilhau will work. As a drill, the coach stands in Langot and the trainee in vom Tag at a passing step distance. The drill is the same as the previous one. The trainee cuts a Schilhau without a passing step and after the cut thrusts with a passing step. If you don't have gloves, only do this drill very slowly so you can get an idea of the proper movement pattern. You must stop the sword before it hits the coach's hands. Don't cut at the coach's hands if they are not wearing gloves. If the coach has gloves, you can do this drill with some intensity, but still be careful. The starting situation is the same as with the previous drill. This time the shilhau is done with a passing step. The cut should land at the coach's hands. Depending on how exactly the coach is holding the sword, the trainee might need to let the point sink just a little to get around the crossguard. Make sure not to leave the hands too high. This will leave you open against their thrust. The shilhau must be cut so that it closes the coach's direct thrusting line. Then the second version of shilhau. This works against vom Tag and descending cuts. I call it the high shilhau. Once again, stand in vom Tag in a thumb grip. This time you want to hold the sword so that your forearms are roughly to the direction of the flats. You want to extend your arms slightly upwards so that your hands are at least level with the top of your head. From there, cut with the short edge so that your hands stay high. The point should be lower than your hands. Your hands should be slightly to your non-dominant side. It is important that you have your hands high. Don't let them drop down and remember to bring them up in the first place. As with the low shilhau, you want to keep the cut rather steep. It is a common mistake to start turning the high shilhau to a zwerghau. The difference between the two is that the zwerghau is a horizontal cut. The high shilhau is a clearly descending cut. Also remember that your hands must be slightly to your non-dominant side. Don't keep them at the center line. You also must cut so that the point is lower than your hands. The cut won't work if you have your hands lower than the point. As a solo drill, cut a high shilhau without a step. Remember to have your hands high and the point low. Then return to vom Tag and repeat. Then a bear drill. The high shilhau works as a counterattack against an oberhau, or basically any descending cut. In the manuscripts, Danzig instructs us to aim the cut at the head of our opponent. Ringek tells us to cut to the dominant shoulder. We'll be cutting to the head because of the protective equipment we have. Once again, if you have gloves, it is a very good idea to wear them. If you don't have gloves, be very careful not to hit the trainee's fingers. Both fencers stand in vom Tag at a passing step distance. The trainee holds the sword in a thumb grip. The coach cuts an oberhau at the trainee's head. The trainee counterattacks with the high shilhau. It is important that the trainee has their hands high when cutting the shilhau. If they have their hands too low, they end up coming in contact with the coach's cut strong against strong. This will most likely parry the coach's cut, but it is likely that the shilhau will not land either. Remember to cut this as a counterattack. Don't turn it into a parry riposte. A high shilhau-like parry riposte is a very useful technique, but right now we are trying to learn a counterattack. And finally, the same exercise but with free movement. Before we get into the recap, go and tap that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Shilhau is one of the vier Versetzen and one of the Meisterhau. It breaks the Flug, or all low thrusting guards in general. There are basically two different styles of a shilhau. There is what I call the low shilhau. It works against low thrusting guards and counters thrusts. What I call the high shilhau works against high cutting guards and it counters descending cuts.